say don't mind the camera, and it's like the thing in the center of the room that, we can't ignore. But something that's really cool about Current, so we've been meeting for a little over a year now, and grab a seat. There's also some extra seats as well that we can get. Lyndsey, yeah, thank you. There's a few right out here. And yeah, we've been meeting for a little over a year, and it's been a lot of fun. And prior to that, though, I started sending out just a weekly email, just kind of dumping ideas around the spiritual human experience from the lens of someone who comes from a Christian background and looking from a more expansive lens, if you will, at this tradition, and reclaiming and really reimagining some of these things that I've just thrown out over the years. And so wrote a weekly email for like a year. Thank you so much for the chairs, my friends, and wife, which is my best friend, so I know. I know, it's cheesy, I know, but it's true. So I started writing a weekly email. Bottom line is, did that for like a year, and then we started this thing a year ago doing it monthly, and it's just really grown, and it's been a really cool and beautiful thing, not only here locally, but also beyond this place too. Because of all of that, I'm not sure if the incense is going to work. I'll speak to that in a minute, but we'll see. It shouldn't give anybody a headache or anything because they're super clean, but we'll talk about that momentarily. But it's cool because it's not just here. It's something that's been expanding from people all over the place, have been reaching out. And so we're trying to be more intentional about ways that we do things with email, online, other offerings for people that don't live in San Diego. So that's part of trying to, capture more of it for our YouTube channel or create more resources, because people in the UK, Australia, all over the US have just been having a great time connecting with us from afar. And it's just really cool, and I thought I should share that with you all. Yeah, it's fun. On that note, another fun story about the camera, just really about an encouragement to follow the prompting of your heart, even though it might not make sense. We've been trying to capture this, but the other camera that I had would only record for 30 minutes, and I had been putting off buying a new camera because money and stuff, you know what I mean? And so I was like, well, last week I just had this it just hit me. I'm like, it's 2025. We need to record the whole thing. People have been sending emails about wanting to do the whole meditation online too, whatever. And I'm like, let's just see what OfferUp has. You know what I mean? And so I found this camera to record for 2 hours, and they had it up for sale, yada, yada. I go down to pick it up, driving farther than I wanted to, and a little annoyed. And so I'm like, I'm going to lowball them a little bit, you know what I mean? Just try to see what kind of deal we could work out, And I show up, and it is this brother and sister who are from Ukraine. And this gentleman starts telling me, I'm like, why are you selling it? And he's like, it's hard to find work here, I came here with my daughter because the war that's happening and all of that. And I'm like, I'm not lowballing this guy. There's just no way. So part of me is like, dang, I can't get a good deal. And the other part of me is like, well, tell me more about your story. And so what's really cool is through this conversation, we got a camera, but we made a friend. And we have a connection, too, to a guy who was the first person that, when we moved here from Indiana, you could kind of hear it whenever I said Indiana, didn't you? Indiana. When we moved here to Oceanside, this couple and their family was the first house that we showed up at with our moving truck and car on the back. His wife is from Sweden. He's from Santa Monica, but they've been a part of this church movement, and they've been really sweet to us over the years as I've been deconstructing, reconstructing, expanding, hating it all and then loving it at the same, all this process. He's just been a friend the whole time. He's probably more like my dad's age. They moved back to Sweden, but the point is that we still keep in touch, and he goes to Ukraine once a month, and he's connected to this Ukrainian community here in San Diego. And so we were able to connect this gentleman with a bigger community that has access to potential career opportunities. He was in tech and IT before, and just really, really cool thing that was able to make a connection. And that's I'm not trying to bolster anything. I'm just saying Connections are always wanting to be made that benefit the good of people. Like God is always at work through irritatingly buying cameras that I'm not in the mood to buy, and then connecting them with people to actually increase the beautiful life that he has to live here now in San Diego. So anyways, as an encouragement, when you feel those nudges and tugs, just go with it, man, and just see where God might want to do something really cool. So that's a big, long way to tell you about the camera. So when you see it, don't hate it. No, there's a story. So incense, we may have to put that out. I'm not sure, but they're all super clean. We're figuring out more ways that we can increase our resource table. We're going to be offering incense as for sale over here as well. I spent a lot of time talking about the other, so I'll digress on that. But the resource table is being restocked. Words Create Worlds is coming out. Just wanted to show you a little teaser copy of what that's going to be. So this is not for resale, but basically I just go through this, take a bunch of like words that we are familiar with and really bring them back to what they really mean. So like, what is Jesus? What is heaven? What are some of these things? And look at them through a more mystic lens. So I'm going to leave this over on the resource table. And my ask for you is that you just flip through it, take a look at it. Please don't take it. But just look through it and see if there's anything maybe missing. I'm doing a bunch of edits, so don't read too hard yet. But just kind of look at it overall and see if there's anything you might add to it, and flip through it. And then there's a pen over there too if you want to write in it too. This is completely just for drafting purposes. So I think that's all like the formal announcements that we have to do, which is what you came for, right? Boring, fun announcements. But what we're going to do is today is exciting because we're going to be talking about the power of sound today. And many of you seen our wonderful sound healing facilitators, Mary and Lyndsey, that have been with us, which we'll talk more in just a moment. But we're going to have a panel discussion with them up here shortly. But before we do the talk, we want to actually do what we always do every time we gather, which is drop in together into the presence of God that's here, out of the mind, into the heart, and connect in a way that is tangible. I think one of the biggest things that's been transformative for my experience, and maybe for yours too, is that, God is not limited to the ideas that I think about God. And it's that feeling, that experience, that reality of love at the core of my being, tapping on that, trusting that the Holy Spirit is always available to me, leading me into truth, revealing the truth of who I am, who God is, and how I'm able to live a life of meaningful reconciliation in the world. And so dropping into that reality beyond our mind, beyond our thoughts. And so we'll talk about it more today, but want to just invite you to that space. So we're going to light our candle as we do. And this is just the symbolism of allowing the light of God to shine into our life, to shine into our mind, to our heart, to our being. Thank you, Sarah. And we symbolically raise that above, so we say together that we are putting our mind above where Christ is seated, from a vantage point from divinity. That as we live in the world, we often can be distracted by all of the anxieties and the stresses and the task list and the responsibilities that are certainly good and necessary. Maybe not to stress about them so much, but these are all things that we engage with in life. But in this moment, for this brief gathering of time, we press pause on all of the ways that we comprehend and understand the world and orient ourselves to a kingdom that is not of this world. We allow the vantage point of Christ to shine light from above, so that we may learn the truth of who God is and who we are. So as Lyndsey leads us through this meditation, we just invite the presence of God into our midst. Even now, if you feel anxious in any way, or if this is unfamiliar to you, I invite you to trust that for whatever reason, God led you to this seat. And you can trust that where God leads you, it is good. So we ask, Holy Spirit, that you would come, bring illumination as we have this sound healing and conversation about the power of sound today. That was God. I'm just kidding.
Sunday, I'm going to guide you in a meditation to just help us drop in and connect with our hearts, but also connect with each other and really be on the same frequency, on the same wavelength, on the same current, no pun intended. So if it feels good for you, you can close down your eyes or just find a soft, gentle gaze forward. And let's just connect with our breath. Just focusing on your inhales and exhales. Really inviting yourself to tune inward. And just become aware of what is present for you in your body and your mind. Taking in an inhale together and exhaling out. If your feet aren't already planted firmly on the ground, I invite you to do so now. If it feels good to bring a hand to your heart, or maybe simply just keeping your hands and palms open on your lap, whatever feels good. This is your space as we connect in with our heart. Dropping in and meeting God in the present moment. Giving the mind a bit of a break. Continuing to focus on your breath, giving your body permission to gently and softly settle in. noticing if there's any resistance here. Knowing that if there is, that it's okay. Inviting all parts of you to have a seat at the table here. Releasing any judgment, any expectations of yourself, of the space of others. Where can you just let it all go for just a few moments? Using this time just as an invitation to fully be present with everything that you hear, sense, feel. If it feels comfortable for you in any way that you feel resonates, we invite God's presence to be tangibly felt and experienced. There's nothing really that you have to do or be other than opening your heart space. Just having a small mustard seed of faith. Even if God's presence is not quite familiar to you, that's okay. Just create a little bit of openness. In your heart. as we continue to drop in together. Just continue to hold the intention of being from your heart space, listening with your heart. I pray that the Holy Spirit opens our ear gates and our eye gates to the presence of God even deeper. And that if there's any places within your heart that may be blocking you from fully receiving the love that God has for you, I pray that God's love in and of itself helps to mend that. Before we close out today, I'd like to lead us in a collective hum, really connecting us even deeper through our voices, through our unique sound that was given to us directly by God. So as I lead you, just join in as it feels good. Feeling the vibrations of your vocal cords. Let's do that 2 more times together. Ready? Good. And last time together. Taking a nice deep breath in and out. And when you feel ready, you can gently flutter your eyes open. Thank you for joining me on that journey.
Thank you, Lyndsey. Here's a mic for you, Mary. I would do no chords, but then I have to deal with batteries and all of that. No, you go if you want to grab that one. Mm-hmm. Thank you all for bearing with us today, too. Some of our flow is a little different than normal, so we're learning, as we go. So thanks for being a part of it all. And it's just fun to switch it up a little bit. Something we were talking about in the group chat before in this week is like, Mary was even sharing, she's like, it's hard to envision because it's such a different flow than what we've done the past year, So that's why we're like tripping over each other and forgetting mics and being humans and, that annoying thing that happens. Being a human, dang it. But I'm excited about this conversation. Can you test your mics really quick?
Testing.
Hello, can you hear me?
Maybe I might bump you up in a second. Yeah, let me bump you up. See, this is the part of us all getting to do this together.
We are a collective.
Indeed. I do. It's me. No. If you are a sound engineer and you know more about this stuff than a drummer that hits things with sticks, then you should probably help me out a little bit. You know what I mean? YouTube University up in here. But I wanted to have a conversation with these two. We've been doing this for about a year, and just to give a little bit of a background here, we started Current, and my idea is to take this very familiar model of church that I grew up in, that I was a part in, that I was trained in, and to do all this stuff, and after years of spending time away, use this container, but just breathe our own funky uniqueness into it. Be us in this very familiar space. And so my initial idea was that people would come, musicians, I play music, so I was thinking people could do original tunes, you know. I was strictly going to do no, like, explicitly, like, worship tunes that you might hear around. I wanted something fresh and original from the heart. And so the first few services we did, we have a friend that came, and then she wasn't available. I couldn't find someone else, and I was like, it was... Even for me, I was like, should we really incorporate sound healing into this space? And I just felt very clearly like God is opening up doors for us to do that and to not, eventually music might come back around. And so I knew that Lyndsey and Mary had both been facilitators. You guys have both came to just enjoy, being here. And let's see, I think you led... You led first.
Led meditation.
Led meditation. Lyndsey led meditation. And it was awesome. And then we did like a backing track, and you did meditation. And then we did Easter together. And I brought a guitar, and we wrote like some intuitive songs together. And it was really cool. And this year has just kind of unfolded into being this, in the space that a normal church might do a worship set, we do sound healing and guided meditation in that space, and it's become a really cool thing. And so I want to invite you both up to, first and foremost, ask you the most important question, and maybe just an icebreaker: tea or coffee?
Depends on my mood. But
What an answer! It depends.
well, like today I had coffee, but I don't ever have coffee. So
Yeah?
yeah, I like matcha.
Oh, okay. We have a write-in. A write-in. What do you feel?
I mean, I have to say mood dependent as well. We are two women up here, after all.
Okay.
But I have both every day. I love both equally.
Both
Yeah,
works.
both.
I'm down for the both, Ann.
Yeah.
Lyndsey is a tea person. I'm more of a coffee. Well, she's coffee and tea, and so she's like both of you, I suppose. But I'm curious. I wanted to bring you both up now that we got the big question out of the way. I just wanted to share both of your stories and highlight both of your stories because a lot of times, too, as we're venturing into this space, some of you may come from a more traditional Christian background where, things like sound healing and meditation and humming, which Mary led us through some humming some months ago, and then you brought humming back around again, and it almost felt like a om sort of thing. And I know, listen, from my own experience, if I would have dropped into a place like this 9 years ago, I'd be like, I don't know. So if you're feeling that way, it's okay. It's all right. Yes. As a matter of fact, we first moved here just to, I guess, my introduction to sound healing is I went to a friend invited me to a space, and then he brought out like a Tibetan brass bowl, and I was like, whoa, uh-oh. What did I get myself into? And he starts playing it, and I'm like, it was down in OB, so you're already a little like, you're already a little squirmy. And I'm like, okay, well, what's going on here? But there's pastors here. All right, what's going on? So I was very apprehensive at first, too, and I think it's good as wherever we're at on the journey to reflect back and have, like, compassion and grace for where everybody's at, So Lyndsey comes from a background, and I want you to just tell your own story, but tell us about your background. Tell us about some of your spiritual background, some of your faith background, and, yeah.
Who am I? Thank you all for having me. And thank you, Luke, for putting this together. I think this is an amazing idea, and it's a really new thing for me to be sharing my story. So just, thankful for the welcomeness. But I'm Lyndsey, and my background, I would say, just collectively was from New Age spirituality. So that's really where I have most of my background from. Let's see, back in 2017 was where my spiritual awakening happened. I lost my uncle to ALS. And that was really what kind of spiraled me into wondering, like, what happens after we die? Where do we go? And so I started to feel called and drawn to the Christian church, and I really dove into that. I got a mentor, and I was studying with this person, really trying to understand kind of what spirituality was. And this was before New Age kind of came back into my life. And so there was a lot of things that I learned, but there was a lot of rigidity that felt kind of disruptive in my system. I remember a time, and I was telling Luke about this when I was sharing my story with you a while back, that I was living with my husband, boyfriend at the time, and the woman who was mentoring me, super sweet lady, but she reached her hands over the table and just was like, I have to let you know that what you're doing is a sin, essentially, and the church would not let me continue mentoring you if I didn't let you know about this. So I just want to let you know. And I'm like, what do I do with that? I'm like living with my partner, who I know I'm going to marry, other things too, but that was one of the biggest things that I was like, whoa, hold on. I don't feel accepted for where I'm at right now. And I'm not saying that that's every Christian person or every part of the faith, although I'm seeing some, but that was my experience. And it really kind of sent me off into this new trajectory of, well, I want to explore my faith. I want to dig deeper into who I am, because we can't be so naive to think that this is the only thing that we have, that we're the only, like we were just put on this planet just to live, like what, so there was just, my mind was expanding. Like I mentioned, it was my first spiritual awakening, and I do believe that we experience multiple spiritual awakenings, like as we evolve through life, like the death and rebirth process I'm very familiar with. But that was kind of my taste into Christianity, and it wasn't a lot. Like I didn't grow up with a family who, we didn't go to church. I think if anything, I would say we were Christian, but it was very much so disconnected from God. I had never had an experience like that. So I ended up going into more spirituality and New Age. I didn't know that it was called New Age at the time. I actually don't know if it was actually called New Age at the time. I think that's a newer term within the last maybe 5 years or so. But I found myself really exploring this and having deep connections with something outside of me for the first time. And it was remarkable. I felt like such a deep sense of peace. I was connecting with others. I felt my heart expanding. I had many different experiences where I was in meditation and I was like, I feel presence. I feel something that I just can't explain with words or articulate fully. And I think, if you have ever meditated or have ever asked for the Holy Spirit to be present here, or spirit, or just trying to connect with something outside of you, then you know that feeling. And so it really brought some peace and a deeper understanding of like, wow, I can continue exploring this, and it just feels so right. There's just this unexplainable truth that I can't really put into words, or I wasn't able to put into words to my family or anything like that. So all that to say, went down the spiritual rabbit hole in spirituality and New Age. Ended up getting Reiki attuned. So that's what I do for a living, is energy healing. I also do hypnotherapy as well. And that's really where it started for me. I felt like I was cracked open, really. But I didn't have, how should I say this? I felt like that gave me, it satiated a need and a space in my heart that I was looking for, but I still felt like there was a hole. I still felt like I wasn't fully connected, or like I was missing something. Everybody around me that was in the spiritual community, I felt like they had it and they knew what they were talking about. They knew what they were doing, and there was still a big part of me that was, I felt like something was missing. And fast forward many, many years, I ended up getting involved with a spiritual community here in San Diego that I know in the Bible they talk about like false prophets and, false light, essentially. And that's what ended up happening for me. And I'm sure this will be, maybe we can set some more time aside for this part. I don't want to like digress too much, but it really, you talk about like the deconstruction of your faith, and that really rocked me to feel like something that was so helpful for me, that was so safe, was no longer safe. I just feel like I couldn't believe everything that I was being told. It just...
And that was in the spiritual space, not from deconstructing from an almost different side. A lot of people that come from a Christian background, they deconstruct maybe from a more traditional. So it's fascinating to me, and that's why I wanted her to share, like, deconstructing from the other end,
It really has been. And it's been, this has been such a unique place for me to continue that deconstruction and continue to stay or connect even deeper with my truth. But all that to say, there was this big fracture that happened in my faith in the universe. At the time, I really couldn't even say God without feeling like a twinge or like feeling...
Anybody else been there?
Yeah, like I just didn't feel... Honestly, I think at the core of it, I didn't feel worthy to even speak God's name out because I didn't have a connection with God. And so I used the word universe, which I think a lot of us use, and I do believe that there is this construction of the universe, but God is also above that too. But at the time, I was like, trust in the universe. And so all that to say, really deconstructed from that end. And I was starting to notice, within the last year and a half, I was starting to notice that there's so many parallels of beliefs within the New Age that there are in the Christian faith. There's nothing not supernatural about a lot of the traditions in Christianity. So much so that I'm like, there has to be a way to bridge the two. And I remember the first time that I showed up here, I was like, hey, I just felt this buzziness when I saw that Instagram post, which I've talked to many of you, and we've all found each other on Instagram, which I love.
No shame in the game, man. Instagram, we all scroll, you know.
Yeah, no, but this was such a godsend. And so I was really searching for a community where I could potentially see where we could bridge the gap, where we could bridge New Age spirituality and Christianity.
Yeah, and just on that note, can you speak a little bit to your recapturing of using God, and specifically how your interest in the teachings of Jesus became an interest in your journey?
Thanks for that. That's a big part of my story.
yeah. And because I'll say more in a moment.
Yeah. So Jesus actually came to me in an energy healing session that I was experiencing, which is...
Outside of a church?
Yeah.
It's not possible.
And I know that maybe to many of you that might sound a little crazy, or maybe not, but he came to me, his presence came to me in an energy healing session. And when we're in energy healing sessions, you're basically in a trance, like what we are in meditation. And that's when
that
we're
makes some people nervous.
Really? Trance, the word trance? Or?
Keep going,
Okay.
keep going.
Like
Jesus people background know. Anyway, okay, let's keep going. Keep going. This is what I love. This is fun. Okay.
So. Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Well, and I think, again, I'm kind of going on different rabbit holes. So, but I think that there's a lot of maybe experiences in the Bible that we don't think that we have accessibility to. And so I think that's something that we're really trying to cultivate, is that God is within us. I see God in you. I see God in every one of you. I feel God in here and in everything. So it's not something where it's so outside of us. So when I met Jesus, and I was like, what are you doing here? This is weird. I totally had rejected God and just didn't really actually quite understand like the Holy Trinity. I didn't understand how it was like the same thing and then also different at the same time. So there was just a lot of questions that I feel like I wasn't able to get answers to or feel settled with. And so I just kind of abandoned them. But in that session, I felt the deepest presence of love that I had never felt before. It felt very similar to when I first started opening up to spirituality in general. Mm-hmm. But this was deeper. It felt like a deep sense of home. Whatever you can kind of think about your home. It's not like a physical home, but it's just like a presence with God. You're going back home. And I was like, okay, that's a little bit weird. And then he left. And I didn't really say anything after that. I kind of was like, let's process this. It took me a few months to just process it. And then in a hypnotherapy session that I was receiving, I have a almost 2-year-old, and my birthing experience was quite traumatic, unexpectedly. And so I had a lot of things that I wasn't able to fully process or heal. And she's perfectly healthy and normal and lovely, amazing. And so it was hard for me to even think about going back to that moment to heal that or to just process it because she was perfectly fine in front of me. And so in that hypnotherapy session, I had just a lot of trapped emotions and held on trauma in my womb and also just in my sacral, my stomach area, and in my heart too. And so the hypnotherapy session was to focus on that. And I was instantly brought back to, it felt so tangible, like I was in that room, that birthing room again. But this time Jesus was there. And so he came back to me. And it was interesting. I want to just kind of describe this, and please cut me off if I'm taking too much time. But it was kind of like a floating vision, right? Like it was, like if you think of like a thought bubble, it's just like a thought in a bubble, right? And so it was kind of it was an imagery of that, and he was just hovering on the outside. So he wasn't there. At that time when I had my daughter, I didn't have Jesus in my life. I really wasn't even close to that, or I felt like I wasn't close to it. But what I was being shown was that he was always there, that he's always been there, and that his presence has always been there with me, even though I abandoned God so far long ago. And it gets me a little bit emotional because there's just so much grace and so much forgiveness and so much peace. And so he came in, and because I welcomed him in. That's another thing too. I feel like God will always be there, but is waiting for the invitation from you. And in New Age spirituality, we talked about spirit guides and spirit and all of that stuff. And your angels, and that was the same kind of principle, was that they're always there, but they're not able to intervene until you ask for help. And I know that's something in the Christian faith too, like ask mm-hmm. and it shall be, and you shall receive. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I invited him in because I felt like this was the first time that I was like, I do want you here. I'm not questioning like, why are you here? I'm like, no, please help me here. And he came to the bedside that I was laying in, and he helped me up, and we walked out. And there was a level of healing that I don't think that I've ever felt before, nor do I think that I would have been able to achieve on my own. And something in the New Age that I was really heavily, I think is still there, is a lot about you, and like you do it on your own, and what you put out in the universe, you'll receive back, and just all of those types of, in my opinion, a lot of toxic positivity, but reliance on yourself. And when I realized that I didn't have to rely on myself, there was a liberation that I've never felt before. And there was a deep sense of, I don't have to do it alone. So.
It's so good.
Yeah, that's just in a nutshell, a part of my experience that really led me to being like, I accept God fully. I mean, I don't want to hide behind like calling him the universe anymore. And I want to give him the credit where credit's due, and I accept him in my life. And so it's really transformed, and now I do everything with God. And that's such a beautiful experience that, better than I could have ever expected.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Thank you.
for sharing that much. Yes, absolutely. Because I think what's incredible, this past year has been great getting to know both of you so well, and that shift that happened for you has been a really cool thing to talk about and to explore. And I know for many of us here, and a big thing that I think is really cool about all of this is that, I don't know if cool is a cool word to say anymore, but I think it's cool, is that, Lyndsey comes from this New Age background and spiritual community background that I've spent time in over these years as well, but also Mary comes from a more traditional background, coming from a Catholic background, and so I want you to share some of your faith journey, and I think it's cool that both of you represent, I think, many of us that are here. Some of us come from this very, we're just kind of, maybe you've been in some New Age circles and been on some meditation retreats and, done some things, but somewhere along the line, Jesus, the teachings of Jesus or something, and you're like, I'm interested in that, and I'm leaning into that. And maybe you go to some churches and some spaces, and then you're like, I'm not interested in that. But I'm interested in that, And so coming in from this door, but then also coming from a traditional door. And so, Mary, what I love about your story and what, if you can bring us into your background, is this from a traditional space. Because these things, I don't know about, I already said where I was at. I was very uncertain and unsure about this. Can you share a little bit about just your spiritual upbringing and your home and some of your background and your faith and tradition?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having
Thank
me
you.
here. And there's so interesting, there's listening to you share your beautiful story and testimony. There's so many parallels in our stories, like the way that they kind of came about, which I find to be so interesting because we are coming from such different backgrounds. But I did grow up Catholic, going to church every Sunday. My mom's side of the family was very traditional, kind of Irish Catholic background. I was an altar server. I sang the Amen on Sundays, and it was all just very kind of this ritual and this, here's where you go at this day, at this time, and here's what you do, and you stand here and you kneel there, and it's like you're just this, almost like a soldier, just following these instructions rather than feeling this connection to it, and it never really felt like this warm, welcoming place. It felt very kind of sterile, I guess, if you will, kind of this cold edge rather than this warmth that you may expect or sometimes hear about. And growing up in the Catholic faith, it was really, you hear about the fear of God, and that, we are to fear God. And in Catholicism, it felt like this true fear, rather than, like actual being scared of him and what he could do in your life and
where he could make you go.
Exactly, yeah, and like, it's kind of like that Santa, like he's watching, you're on the naughty list and you're not getting off of it, That's kind of how it felt. This fear and this kind of more shaming piece, rather than this open door to connect to this loving presence, and this fear and a sense of awe at this all-knowing, all-loving presence who has created this world that we get to live in. And so that's just what it was for me. I had no connection. And then when I was 7, my father was diagnosed with cancer, and I lost him when I was 13. And at that point, we kind of turned away from going to church altogether, and I abandoned faith in any sort of God that I hadn't really felt much of a connection to in the first place. And then I was just kind of off on my own until I had my son. I just didn't really believe in anything.
Singing in rock bands?
Singing in rock bands, yes. Singing, the gift of song has been something that God gave me. He gives each of us gifts, and gifts that are able to connect us and others with him and kind of, give him the glory. And singing was always something that I felt, that peace within. And yeah, sing in rock bands, that was very different, but it's always been this way of connecting to something, I guess. But then when I had my son, who is 7.5 now, I stopped working, I started staying at home, and when he started walking and really making messes and not listening to me, and I didn't have this sense of control, I started reacting in all these ways that felt really scary to me. And I started to go into a dark place, and a really dark place. And it really kind of sent me into this place of trying to process my dad's death. And it really just kind of sent me on this dark journey of what's going on with me? What are these reactions? And there's something bigger here that needs to happen. And kind of in my searching of getting out of that dark time, I went to a hypnotherapy session. And
it's cool that you were open to that. Given your background and upbringing.
And during this hypnotherapy session, he was like, we're going to be working on forgiveness. And think about someone you want to forgive. And I went home, and I was at the beach, and I was thinking about it, and it was like that knock on the door again. It was like, oh, you need to forgive God. Not forgive, but not that he needs any sort of forgiveness, but you need to repair that. That's what's broken. And it was just that, like, knock on the door of my heart, like, okay, that's what's missing here. That's what's going to pull you out of this space, because I had been kind of, looking into some new age type stuff, and it hadn't really landed for me. And once I was open to that, it just sent me on this journey of going back to church, but a Christian church, so different than the Catholic faith. And then that's really where I got to know Jesus and feel the love of God and the warmth and the presence of God in my life, and really getting to know that and understand that it is this God within, like you were saying, Lyndsey. It's in the Catholic faith, it always felt like this God that was way up there, way out there, that you couldn't touch, you couldn't hear from. And it really brought it into my heart, and I felt connected for the first time. It was incredible. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced, this peace and this hope that things can be different. And the more that I leaned into that and connected to that presence, the more God started to guide me. Because I was still, when I, went back to that Christian church and was in that place, I was still lost, and he was continuing to guide my path and guided me to sound healing, just without, going on too long. It was following those little nudges that God gives you, like. And when you're saying, ask, it's like, God, I know I need something more than this. What is it? It's not just me at home with this little baby, which I know is important, but there's something else from my life and my calling. And what is that? Marrying, singing, and helping others. And I had no idea. And following these little nudges led me to click on this sound healing event in Laguna Beach. I don't know why. On Facebook, like, okay, God, sure, I need to go to this. And following those little nudges is what led me to sound healing. I didn't know what a sound healing was. I just felt like I had to go to it. And it was so abundantly clear that I was on the right path whenever I would follow those little nudges. And so I've just been really leaning in to following that and surrendering to what he has for me, because it's so much better than I could have ever expected. Yeah. And the combination of God and Jesus in my life and guiding to these bowls it pulled me out of that dark place, and it pulled me into this space of being able to share with others that there are tools and ways of really facilitating that connection every day, and being able to tangibly feel that presence within. And that sound has really magnified that.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you so much, Mary. It's awesome you being able to share that, both of you being able to share this gift here with us, because it's something that is new and fresh and different for a space. Everything that we're doing just feels like I said last time, it feels like a laboratory in a lot of ways, and we're like putting different things together, and sometimes things blow up and sometimes they work out, and you just kind of keep putting on your safety glasses and getting back to work and being like, all right, because there is that nudge, there's that pull. And we moved here back in 2016 because I was in a different place then, but I just knew that God was doing something fresh and different in this region, in this space of Southern California, and I wanted to get here for whatever that was. I thought I had my idea of what that was, and these past 9 years have been not that at all. Lyndsey can attest. It's really about feeling those nudges and not judging it, our preferences, our aversions, or whatever it is, and just trusting the unfoldment of what God's doing. And that's what I hear in both of your stories. And it's brought you to this place. And maybe for many of you, it's been a nudge or a tug, or something for some reason, you saw this thing online or were invited by a friend or something, and you found your way here. And it's because there is something fresh that is coming to light and coming to life. And just feeling this unified thing that I think the freshness of it is, and what I hear from in our conversations, and by all means correct me here, we're going to close here in just a moment. I don't know, we're working all this out time-wise as we go, friends. But what I wanted to create is what kept percolating back to me, being a PK and everything, and then doing sound healing and going through. You don't need to share all of it right now, but I want a space where these parables, this wisdom of Christ that percolates up within me, a place to be able to explore that openly and honestly, but not having to feel boxed into the religion of Christianity that has come up, to follow the way of Christ beyond the religion that has came up around this figure. And if you live in America, you've engaged this figure in some way, shape, or form. And so reimagining and really reintegrating some of these things in ways that are more open, more expansive, more inviting to a real tangible goodness in our life, I think is what's important here. And to me, I think sound healing, what it's done in this space, I think, because I grew up charismatic, and we would spend time, soaking in the presence of God on a bridge on a song for however long or whatever, and that's just how it was. And to me, it's like that you could feel whenever we were, getting in that current, no pun intended, of the presence of God that was there. And to me, this is just another practice. It's another method. It's another way to do that. That you don't necessarily need a full drum kit and some delay guitar reverb and all the stuff to do, which is awesome, by the way, in its own right. But this is a different way of expression, and I wanted each of you to share, because where they're leading us into is a very vulnerable, intimate space of the heart with God. And by you sitting here, whether you're in here or whether you are at a church service or whether you're at a spiritual circle or whether you're, picking some random person on Facebook to go on a psilocybin journey with,
You know, you're opening yourself up to people. Hit you with the left on that one. Nobody saw that coming. They said, "What? Pastor Luke." You know, I'm just saying, whatever it is that you're opening yourself up to, you should have a degree of trust with that person that you're doing that with and experiencing that with. And my hope is that the collective part of this is that it's not just about like, you know, me or us or what, that it's us truly connecting together in friendship. And I love, again, hit you with another right here, the Ram Dass quote, we're all just walking each other home, you know? And I truly believe that. We're all walking each other home. We each have different responsibilities in all of this thing, but it's not a hierarchical system of control or manipulation. It's just we each have different gifts to give, and I've had to reconcile that in my own life. I was very apprehensive starting this space for a long time because I'm like, I don't know, be in charge. I don't know if I want to do that. But it's like you just operate in different ways. And so my point is that with each other, with yourself, with these wonderful, powerful, gifted women here leading us into this meditative space, that you feel a degree of comfortability with them, that you know a little bit more of their background, you know a little bit more of their story. They become not just a random person that's, you know, playing bowls and saying words and humming hums, that they're people that you can know and trust because you understand more of where they've come from and how they can help us all be in the presence together and as we facilitate this together. So I hope that that's been somewhat helpful. That's been our intention and our purpose with this, is that we become a little bit more comfortable with these things, because some of us might be a little, you know, I don't know, man. But more so than that, that you become more comfortable with the people that's facilitating that and that you know them. And that hopefully you're getting to know me more and all of us as we really, I think 2024 was a year that we raised the flag up and we're like, this is kind of who we are, and if you want to drop in, sweet. This year we're really building and growing and seeing how we can be a better service to this fresh expression. So I know we're a little bit over our hour mark, but just wanted to ask, and I'm wondering, are you on sound healing for next gathering?
No.
You're not, okay. Because we were going to end with a little bit of a sound healing, but I want to respect people's time.
I'll be on the next one.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be
There's
here,
other
man.
opportunities.
We're going to be here. I did just want to give maybe just like a room for a couple. If anybody does have like specific questions about sound healing or this meditation thing or what we're about or whatever, I did just want to say, I mean, if you feel courageous and bold enough, if you want to, this is a great opportunity for kind of everybody. Because sometimes people come up afterwards and I'm like, this would be awesome for everybody to hear. Mm-hmm. So I just want to give a quick space from their stories and kind of my little spiel. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts or feedback from any of it? Yeah.
I guess this is for both of you. Let's see, what are the things that you thought were like interesting or surprised about when you started getting into this? What are things that like really helped you or like helped with the healing or whatever? And as I kind of lead into that, like I kind of first heard about this kind of stuff shortly after realizing there was like an F sharp key on like my keyboard that was like really wiggly. And later on I learned that like F sharp was supposed to like heal the heart chakra. Mm-hmm. And so I just thought that was like really interesting. I wonder if there's anything like that or like just stuff that surprised you and really helpful.
Yeah, I can kind of start a little bit. Something I was thinking would be beneficial to share that kind of ties in with this is just, for me, doing a training, an intensive training on the bowls, I thought was really interesting because I think when I first heard them, it was like, you know, just this otherworldly sound and like, what is this, you know, and it can be kind of, especially from a Catholic or another background, just kind of a little unsettling, like what's going on here, a little woo-woo, if you will. And so for me, during the training, something that I thought was really helpful was really getting kind of some of the science behind what's going on with the bowls and how they're actually working with your body's nervous system. the literal healing, and it's not just, there is another element, of course, when you are bringing in the intention and energy of connecting with the Holy Spirit and in prayer, asking for healing for what you need healing for. But there is a scientific element behind the bowls, and so the vibrational frequency of them is resonating and entraining with your body's nervous system. So your vagus nerve kind of runs throughout your body and connects to all your body's different major systems. It touches them all. And it can be activated through your ear. And so through the vibrations, it's kind of getting into that vagus nerve, and it's signaling to your body to turn the parasympathetic nervous system on. And so that's when you're relaxed. If you're in a deep meditative state, or you're on vacation in Hawaii on the beach, or here in Carlsbad, and you're just feeling that state of peace, that's your body's parasympathetic nervous system at work. And so these bowls, these instruments, help your body to get there. They help do some of that work for you. And when your body is able to get into that state, that's when cellular healing happens. And so it isn't just this woo-woo, there's really science behind it. And each of the bowls has a different note that it resonates with. And like you're saying, there are certain energy centers. Yeah, there are energy centers within your body. There are sharps, there are flats, and so actually the sharp notes entrain with your endocrine system and correspond with your body's endocrine system, and then kind of your flat notes will correspond with chakras or energy centers if you're into that. So you can really target certain areas of your body to heal, and then when you combine that with a prayer and really that intention of working with the Holy Spirit to heal, I think it's just so powerful. And so I thought that was really, to kind of circle back around to answer your question, that science and what it's doing inside your body was really powerful for me, because it was like a joining of the two. And like you were saying, Lyndsey, earlier, it's a really incredible way to marry some kind of a New Age practice, science-based practice with spirituality.
It's really good.
Thanks for speaking on the science of that. I feel like you're more of like the science, like you can share that piece. My
Can I have you answer this question maybe?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
During today's session, so I felt like definitely a very much an experience with like a flooding of the blue kind of light, right? So what, like in your experience with this, is the relationship between sound and light?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and actually a very common experience with blue, especially because the majority of the time I was playing my indigo bowl. Okay. And so a lot of people will see the color blue in their mind's eye. And so that usually correlates with like the energy center. So like your third eye chakra is usually associated with indigo. But yeah, that can just be experienced. Not everybody experiences seeing colors during sound healings, although that is a very common experience. It really just depends on how you receive spirit, how you receive God, how you receive the energy. So some people might feel a rush of chills throughout their body. Some might see more pictures or images, colors. Other times you might hear or feel like you're getting...
This is my favorite tone, personally.
So peaceful. So it really just depends. It really just depends on how you connect. But yeah, it's a very common experience that you had too. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. That's
awesome. So if you have any other questions, find us around here or ask on Instagram. We'll share them. I definitely want to respect our time here and our time frame. But love the questions and love all of this. Thank you both. And thank you for asking. And it's fun to have these sorts of conversations in a church space. Somebody talking about a chakra in a church space is not common. And if you're unfamiliar with some of those things or uncomfortable, it's all good, man. It's all right. And you'll be surprised to see how correspondent much of Christianity has to offer in some of these spaces. So if you don't mind, stand with me as we pray, and we'll close. And by all means, feel free to stick around, ask questions, hang out, find a buddy, whatever. But let's end with praying here. God, we thank you for this space. We thank you for this time. We thank you for the openness to explore all of these areas that we can find your goodness. We thank you for open minds and open hearts to your activity, to your leading, to your guiding, to your prompting, to the deepest part of our true selves. God, we just even pray for any apprehension that you would bring clarity as this week goes on, and that you would remind us that you're always with us and give us the courage to reach out in our deepest heart to invite you into every part of our being. So even now as we go, we just ask, God, that you would bless us, that you'd keep us, that your face would shine upon us and give us grace and peace as we move through this world as a light of love. So be it. Amen. Amen. All right, friends. This is fun. Dude, we freaking did it, man. We freaking did it, man. So fun. Find somebody to talk to, hang out with. We'll be back here in 2 weeks for another gathering, and it's going to be a great time.